Whoa. A lot of people here. Can you hear me? Yeah. I was standing in there realizing that I was the first one from external talker today. And I have a friend who's a really good stand-up comedian. And I asked him, how can you manage to be a good comedian for such a long time? And he said, well, there is one specific rule that you need to remember. Never, ever, ever be the opening act. And so this is semi-opening, so I might survive. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Volvo truck case. And I'm going to be quite technical. They asked me to be quite technical in the description. But I hope that you can read between the lines, or badly designed slides, that it's much more about a relationship. The ability to have a client and an agency finding such confidence in each other so they can actually do stuff that breaks rules, challenge conventions. I think that sometimes we talk about brave clients. I think we should change that over into brave partnerships. That will be a lot more interesting and long-term than just a brave client who can do stuff. And every now and then, which happened in this case, is that the idea gets to be on top of the hierarchy instead of us simple humans fighting on different levels. So I think that's one thing that made this what it is today. Right. In the meanwhile, that's all I wanted to say, really. I don't have anything more, except that I wanted to tell you how stupid our industry can be sometimes. And I use myself as a bright example of that. And even maybe my team and our agency, because the first time Volvo Truck came to us, asking us if we wanted to work on the global account, we saw only one thing, and it was this. So we politely said no. We saw what they were saying, we heard what they were saying, but we decided not to go. And 2 weeks later, they came back, and we still had our prejudiced kind of view of what this industry was like, so we said no again. In a strange way, it ended up with them coming back a third time. Don't tell me how that happened. But that's when we changed our mind. Some people at the agency claimed that it was due to the massive Christmas party we had the day before. And to some degree, maybe they're right. But we in the small team that met them kind of understood it or saw it from a different perspective. Because what they were saying is that this is the first time we're going to launch a new truck in 16 years. This is the most important stuff that we've done in 16 years. And it was actually one of the biggest industrial projects in Sweden at the time. But they managed to phrase it in a specific way. They said, this is not just another truck. And we were quite quick to follow. We said, all right, then it can't be just another launch. And that kind of stuck with us the whole journey, which is great from an advertising perspective. So we went to school. We traveled all over Europe, not by plane, but by car, so we could stop and eat at all the major truck stops. Whining and dining, you could say, but in a different way than you used to in advertising, I guess. And we started looking into interviews with engineers, with customers, with drivers, and we kept on going for quite a long time, I would say almost a year, before we ended up with a brief. And I'm just going to show you some stuff that we found on our way. One of them was that it wasn't a lot of good communication in the industry. This is one of the few examples, I guess. Quite a good peek towards Scandinavia there. I like that. Another thing that struck us was, because early on I thought it was going to be buyers of trucks, right? They buy trucks and that's it. But they were quite a complex group. You had the guys in suits who bought 200 trucks at a time, dinners, and yeah, you know all about it. But on the other side, you had guys like this. who had one truck that was partly his tool, but also his home for certain times. And then you had a third category of people not interested in trucks at all. They were interested in brewing beer or getting food or whatever. So that was the three major groups that we divided it into. Another super important thing that came about was that even though it sounds like a truck buyer is the sole god and takes all the decision by himself, there were a lot of influencers. Of course, the drivers. The drivers test the trucks. They drive the trucks. They live in them. And it's an extremely important tool for them. But also the families to the truck buyers and the drivers. Like the wife, is usually the wife that is at home, unfortunately, wanted her husband's safe return. But the kids were surprisingly important, that they wanted to show off their son, or actually their son saying, "My dad works in a cool job." So that had a big influence. The other stuff was that there was a big global demand for good drivers, and there is a reason to that. I mean, the drivers are usually the one who meets the clients, and if you have a good driver, you can maintain your relationship to your client, but you can also gain the benefits of low fuel consumption and less accidents and stuff. So that's the ingredients. One more important ingredient, our competitors were looking like this, and we were looking like this, which made a big difference in media budgets. We realized from the very beginning that we won't have enough money to buy media. I like big budgets, but sometimes a small budget kind of opens up different doors. You can close some doors with a small budget where normal, conventional way of doing stuff just won't work. And I think this was part of this. So a very brief looking at how we kind of view the situation at the moment. Scattered target groups, lots of influencers, and a small media budget. At any normal day, you would look at this problem, especially from a planning perspective, saying, all right, we need to segment. We need to find these specific persons that buy trucks and then hit them as hard as we can. Boom. We choose to go the other way around. We call it go wide but hit tight. And I tried to explain to you a little bit of how we were thinking there, because it's kind of an advertising way of putting it, go wide, hit tight. But it's like this, but with relevance. So we wanted a Gangnam style, but we wanted that effect. We wanted that, because that was the bright shining star when we started working with Volvo. It had 100 million views on YouTube. It's like that, boom. Everyone was talking about it, and you went to parties and they were running that Gangnam style on the computer, and everyone was dancing. It's like learning the dance. So we wanted that kind of engagement, but with relevance. So we came up with this theory, or hypothesis, if you like, because we wanted our ads to work in two different layers. If you probably will see Jean-Claude Van Damme, and hear Enya maybe, and an interesting piece of work. But if you're a driver, you won't notice. Some of them will notice, but not all of them noticed Jean-Claude Van Damme. They will see the amazing live test that's been going on. Because reversing with two trucks at the same time, with the guy standing on the rearview mirrors, it's extremely difficult. And it wasn't possible until Volvo came up with the feature of dynamic steering. So that's how we connected the relevance. So be super relevant with the actual feature, or the feature, yeah. And then make it as interesting as possible, so we get a broader target group that can be, so it can be viewed and shared by a lot of people, but at the end of the day, hit straight into the target group. So that was our theory. And I'll give you some example of that. This beautiful little truck, it's the FMX. It's the toughest, most robust truck of Volvo in construction work. And that's how they compete. They need to be rough and tough. So who would be better to show that off than the CEO himself? So we ran this one.
Hello, my name is Claes Nilsson, president of Volvo Trucks. I've learned that when you want to make a YouTube hit, you need a hook at the beginning of the film. And here it is. This is a hook from the new Volvo FMX. Made of cast iron, and it holds up to 32 tons. That's far more than this, so you don't need to worry. In fact, you don't need to worry about anything. The new Volvo FMX is the most robust truck we've ever made.
So, for the media press, for the business press, this was hot stuff. Everyone started to write about it and talk about it. And for the public saying, all right, big balls on that CEO, cool, and looked at it and shared it maybe. But for the target group, truck buyers, it was the first truck they ever seen that was managed with the hook to lift its own weight. That had extremely important for them. So that was one way of showing this mechanism. The other one is, because I did so many interviews with Roland Svensson. He's the engineer behind the ground clearance of this truck. It's like he's been working for it so many years, down in a basement somewhere. You never see him. And we talked to him, and he explained these 300 millimeters. It's groundbreaking. It's like, shit, is that a feature? How are we going to show that? and when we fought it, and we thought about it, and we realized that 300 millimeters is actually 25 millimeters more than Roland Svensson's head. So we ran this one.
Hello, I'm Roland Svensson, technician at the Volvo Trucks. I have been working with the ground clearance of the new Volvo FMX. I'm very proud to say it's fantastic. We have a stiff plate protecting all vital parts, and we have positioned airspring members and air bellows higher up. This means 300 millimeter ground clearance, just a little bit more than my head. If you want more information, please go to volvotrucks.com. Thank you.
So, Volvo truck fan base grew, and I'm talking fan base. Part of it was, of course, the target group, but also the people that was going to watch it and spread it. All ramping up. We did 6 films, I think, and all ramping up for the final live test that we were going to do. And that one was based on dynamic steering. And you all seen it, but I'm going to show it again. We need the views, so I'm going to show it again. Mr. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I've had my ups and downs, my fair share of bumpy roads and heavy winds. That's what made me what I am today. Now I stand here before you. What you see is a body crafted to perfection. A pair of legs engineered to defy the laws of physics, and a mindset to master the most epic of splits.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows, only time? And who can say
campaign in total. But I just want to mention, it's interesting, if you look at it from a truck buyer perspective, you see the lines, how they follow the lines, and how the truck actually can stay stable, because normally a truck would start going like this if you didn't have the technology. So it's interesting, next time you see it, and do look at it a lot. Look for that. In total, the campaign have around 100 million views on YouTube. It's got 8 million shares, which is one step better, I think. It also have thousands of spoofs that have been done, adding another 50 million views to the account, which was an interesting development that we didn't count on. We have approximately 20,000 editorials that have been written about it globally. And editorial, I mean, in-depth interviews about the technology and the stunt that's been doing, which was a great part, and I'm very proud of that. So I guess this is the part where you're going to ask me, all right, did you sell any trucks? And I'm going to answer just like a typical advertising agency. I'm going to say, well, it depends. And it does, to be honest. There's approximately 100,000 people working at Volvo, super dedicated to producing some of the best trucks in the world. I won't be able to say that we're the greatest part of that success that they're experiencing in Europe at the moment. But a small piece of that success, maybe, we can claim. Because it's all about the product at the end of the day. One thing that I was very proud to see, though, is that 46% of the ones who see in this film bring Volvo into their consideration set, which kind of made me proud as a planner. So you could say that we thought about pretty much everything, except for one. We never thought about a life after the epic split. We were desperately trying to come up with a recipe to find how it was done. What kind of instrumentals, what kind of stuff did we manage to do in the epic split that kind of went viral? And we searched for weeks for that recipe. And the only conclusion we come up with is that there is no recipe. And I'm sorry if you came here today to get a recipe. I won't be able to deliver it. But I think there might be a method. And I think this is the most important part of this case. I think the ability to create a true partnership between the client and the agency is key. We have tried to organize our agency to build that relationship. For example, we flipped the whole hierarchic system over. So we don't have any creative directors. We don't have any ECDs or global yada yada. We only have craftsmen. And the teams are at the top. The ones who's actually producing stuff is actually the ones who takes the decisions. So, and the rest is just support for the teams. So in a team, you're almost like your own little agency. You take financial decisions, you take creative decisions, you do everything in that team, which is a different way of running it. We have a pretty extreme definition of how to do it. When you don't remember who did what, just remember that the result was great. And that includes the client. The second part is, it's like swearing in church here, I guess. But strategy and creation goes hand in hand. I don't think that you should separate the two of them, at least not the way that we are working. I think the benefit of using, because, I mean, to be honest, some of the creatives that I worked with are a lot better planners than I am. They're not better at the actual work, but their planner mind is spectacular. So why not use that in the process of developing the strategy so you get the creative part coming at the same time, parallel. We have an extreme way of saying it at our agency as well, but we're actually saying that if a strategy doesn't work from a creative standpoint, it's not a good strategy. It's tough for a planner. Yeah. So what happens when you work like that? Well, you can get cool creatives to hang out with the stars. The CEO can become the actress in a big corporation. And a planner can be standing up here talking. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.